Well, good morning, good evening, everybody. I'm assuming I'm good, Nicole.
Fantastic. There we go. We've
All
had two
right,
false
let's go.
starts, Tony. Let's try again.
Righto,
So, good
righto.
morning,
While
everyone.
you're talking, I'll bring it up.
Fantastic. And we're live now,
Right.
Tony.
No,
So people
good.
can hear and see us. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Sorry, we've had a couple of false starts there, problems getting out of backstage. It's terrific to be here with you this morning. My name's Nicole Amsing. I'm one of the coaches with Lean Enterprise Australia, and it's a privilege of mine to work alongside Tony McNaughton, who will be joining us this morning and sharing his experience and expertise. Tony's also a coach with Lean Enterprise Australia, and Tony is going to share with us some of his experience from his years with Toyota, and then also how he's shared that lean thinking and practice experience with other organisations and industries across his career. So we're really looking forward to hearing about your experience, Tony, and your learnings. Over to you.
Thanks, Nicole. Before you mute, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Well, good morning, good evening, folks, wherever you may be are located. Yeah, I'm Tony. It's my pleasure to share my story with you. In full transparency, I created some notes about 20 years ago when I realized that, wow, it's 20 years since I popped into Toyota. Um, and before you know it, it's 40 years. So just try and click that slide. So it's 40 years, and I thought it's appropriate to reflect. It's a very important part of lean, the reflection process. And like all of us, when you reflect on some of the moments way back, sometimes we shake our heads in dismay about some of the decisions we made and some of the actions we took. But anyway, it is what it is, and we can't change that. So yeah, let me just share that. So 40 years since I walked into Toyota Australia in Port Melbourne. And part of the reason for sharing this is I have no doubt that that 10 years that I had with Toyota Australia really shaped not only my career, but uh, um, the way I think generally, and the way I kind of go about my life today. So without further ado, let me just begin. So it's way back to 1985, an interesting time because it was a time when Toyota Japan, TMC, were exploring how to do business in manufacturing outside of the walls of Japan. So how to deal with unions, how to deal with a non-Japanese workforce, how to deal with a non-Japanese supply base, and it was far from perfect, far from perfect, but an interesting time, a great time to come on board because while Toyota were trying to figure it out, it was a great opportunity to learn. The role I applied for was a production trainee, which sounds a bit strange. I was previously a skilled trades in the food industry in the country, and frankly wanted a job in the big smoke in Melbourne, and I was lucky enough to get this job. But even the interview process was very interesting. The first interview was very what you would expect with the HR manager and a couple of other folks interviewing. The second interview was with a Japanese guy called Matt Tajiri, who didn't have much to say, but immediately went to the shop floor and walked around and talked about this concept called Kaizen, which I had no clue about, and was very curious about my practical skills from my 8 years of experience as a skilled trade. What he was looking for was somebody who could be effective to do Kaizen in the manufacturing. So lo and behold, I landed one of three traineeships with Toyota Australia, and clearly I had no prior TPS knowledge. Uh, um, and day one, I turn up at the Toyota factory and ask a few questions. Where is my office? No office. Or where's my desk? No desk. I'm handed some safety boots and some overalls and some PPE, rudimentary as it was in those days. And I was introduced to the production line. and I was buddied up with one of the team members on the line, and was expected to perform the production work. So it was not made, I was not made aware that this is going to be the situation through the interview process. So it was a bit of a shock. Day one was a big shock for me. Maybe they got the wrong guy. Maybe they've made a mistake, but none of the above. And to be honest with you, it was a real baptism of fire. It was hard work. Um, I'm young, I'm fit, I've got skilled trades, so I'm quite dexterous with my ability to do stuff. There was standardized work displayed, but I had no real understanding of what standardized work was. Um, I struggled to keep up with the line speed to get my work done within the tack time. So I needed support. I think the team leader got very tired of supporting me through those days. And the cherry on the top would be I would finally figure out how to do the work and how to keep up with the line speed. So do the work within tack time, and I'd be moved to another job immediately. And so this went on and on and on. I was surrounded by a whole bunch of multiculturalism. Toyota Australia in 1985 had 57 nationalities. I think I was the only Australian born nationality working on the production line at that time, surrounded by a lot of Vietnamese immigrants. Some of them were qualified doctors, fighter pilots from the Vietnam War, all of these highly capable folks whose qualifications was not recognised back then in Australia. And they were very good workers indeed. Um, Maybe they were my first sensei, just teaching me how to survive on a production line that doesn't cease to stop. I was a little bit intrigued about the systems back in the day. And again, this was Toyota Australia just starting to take over what was Australian Motor Industries. At the time, we were building Corolla and a model called Corona. Um, and they had Andon in place, and I started to notice um, the reason for the Andon, and so I became very familiar and very a frequent flyer with using the Andon. Kanban systems to replenish, very simple systems to replenish the material line side. Everything we know and take for granted today was like a big bad new world for me. And I think the interesting thing for me back then was the manager would walk past, the production manager, and he would ask, "Hey, how you doing today? How you going?" And my pride, my ego, I would say, "Yep, all good, no problem here, nothing to see here." But then they would ask, the Japanese manager, especially Mr. Tajiri, would ask, "Can you see any opportunity for Kaizen?" And I really had no clue what he was talking about. In fact, I was just so busy trying to keep up with the speed of the line. I felt like I had no capacity to even think about, um, what could be done to improve this process, which we all take for granted now. Um, this went on for some time. In fact, it went on for about 3 months, day after day, different job after different job, some very difficult, some not so difficult, but great learning opportunities. I finally was on a job where it was really tight, really tightly balanced to the tack time with not a lot of breathing room. And I figured out that a lot of the high usage parts were perhaps not placed on the line side in the optimal position. And so there was a few seconds of walking that was not necessary. And so I had my moment. The Japanese manager walked past, asked the same old question, and with great pride, I suggested that we could rearrange this line side arrangement of the material and save a few seconds. So, and immediately that was okay, game on. So back in those days, and I'm assuming even to this day, they had a dedicated team of skilled trades their primary purpose was production improvement, PI team they were called. And so we did the changes at lunchtime. the Japanese manager was there to help us and to see the after effect. And it was like graduation. I was immediately um, removed from the line the next day, and which I'll talk about. And to this day, I kind of have those, moments where, wow, could I still be on the production line as a team member had I have not come through with some Kaizen idea. The big lesson is, it's the classic, understand production in the automotive industry by doing, by getting your hands dirty. It's the classic learning by doing, and you know the key lesson was communicated to me, and that is in your future roles within Toyota, whenever you are making decisions that may impact the worker, impact the direct team member, always consider what this means from the lens of the team member. And very, very valuable lesson very early on my career. So it's like graduation. I shifted to some very, very simple individual projects as well as some more team-based projects upon graduation from the shop floor, if you will. So it was an interesting time. Again, nothing too complicated, quite mundane actually. So standing at the end of the assembly line day after day, collecting data on two particular things, on any issues that were impacting the water test results and any paint damage that may have been happening as a result within the assembly department. So there's nothing much. So very confident with my data. I presented it to the manager, and of course, then the manager asks me to go and find perhaps not the root cause, but the point of cause. And again, I guess again that moment you never forget. You find the point of cause. You take some countermeasures and the problem goes away. It's a great feeling of accomplishment, even though it may have been very simple back in the day. But I think the bigger learning for me, no surprise to folks that have been down this lean path, was the ability to consolidate the story on one piece of paper. And again, this was I feel like the thinking process mattered more to the Japanese manager than the content or the results. And again, I feel like this was just another step in the long-term development plan that these Japanese managers had for me. Many times, many reworks, but very, very rewarding process. So again, as the years tick by, I was fortunate enough to be one of a few that was selected to be trained in standardized work and Kaizen. And again, I reflect on this often. The basic standardized work training was 16 hours for the basic introduction to standardized work. And then a fellow by the name of Mr. Kato would fly out from TMC Japan, and he would conduct a very standard and structured 40 hours of standardized work and Kaizen training, which was very much shop floor based. And we could only do that 40-hour training if we had successfully completed the 16-hour training. So it was quite intense, and it involved actually, implementing some Kaizen and then re-standardizing and measuring the improvement, blah, blah. It was the full 9 yards. But again, something on the surface that we think, yeah, standard work, when, all of the participants, including myself, had to spend 56 hours to get to the point where, okay, you're ready to begin, was another very Toyota typical experience. And again, it's here we go again. Doing is understanding versus just understanding the theory. So then, some years later, again, very fortunate to be one of a very select few to be recruited into what was known as the Supplier Development Program, effectively working with Toyota's Tier 1 suppliers. And again, it was another shocking experience for me because of the complexity in what the suppliers do. The ability to make glass for windscreens, the ability to make electronic components for the um, and again, I think we failed unspectacularly in the early days. We would do what is famously known as a Kaizen event, and we would create an island of excellence in one of these supplier factories, surrounded by waste. And again, that was not what the expectation was. We really struggled to apply TPS outside Toyota in those days until we were fortunate to be visited by a fellow by the name of Mr. Nakayama. He was the general manager of Operations Management Consulting Division from Japan. Nakayama was an interesting character. Number one, he took over Taiichi Ohno's role as the general manager. This group was set up by Ohno back in the day, and he married Taiichi Ohno's daughter. So he kind of got the double there. So Mr. Ohno took one look at what we were doing with our Kaizen events and our isolated islands of excellence and said, "You guys have no idea. Come to Japan and we'll teach you." They taught us something what they called the big paper, which in later years was known as the value stream mapping process or material and information flow diagrams back in the day. And that opened up the whole expectation. So we learned the value stream focus from end to end, and we started to learn from these guys that lead time reduction was one of the true TPS targets, and not only to be delivering components to the Toyota factory in sequence, but how far upstream in the factory, in the supplier factory, can they build to sequence and deliver to Toyota, which inevitably exposes problems and exposes a problem solving capability gap, and there's the connection to the bigger picture, which is build the capability at all levels. So a lot of lessons over the years. It was 10 years, but I was very fortunate. The initial hands-on was invaluable to me. Met some fantastic people. Was mentored by many people, and you come away with um, a theory that you've got to walk the path to show it. And I feel like I was so fortunate to have 10 years within the organization, exposed to different kind of parts of the business. And so when I hear famous Toyota sayings like having no problem is the greatest problem of all, I get it. Without standards there can be no improvement. I get it. Doing is believing. I really get that one. And again, one of the popular ones is it's not what you see, it's what you cannot see that's most important, which is the behavior and the capabilities that's invisible to somebody perhaps visiting. And again, I'd say, the bank of knowledge is the accumulated real experiences. And what I found is, you know, con, back yourself, and you gain confidence through deep lived cycles of learning over the journey. So yes, I'd say I guess for better or worse, my life is changed by lean. It certainly frames how I think about things and how I contribute. I would like to think, and many of my colleagues spent many, many more years than I did. I had a 10-year window. A lot of my good friends spent 20, 30, 40 years. I have a few colleagues who are still there, and all of these guys were mentors to me. The other thing is, TPS has infinite depth, yet seems very simple on the surface. I meet folks, in my travels now, and they go, "Oh yeah, TPS, the identification and the elimination of waste," and I think, yeah, very good, but it's so much deeper than that, and it's so hard to explain the depth. Um, even after, 40 years of my journey. Um, so look, many mentors in the Port Melbourne days and in the supply development days. Um, and I'll be forever grateful for the life-changing experience that I was exposed to. And so with that, I think we've got about 5 minutes, Nicole. That went to plan as far as timing goes. My question to you is, should I stop sharing?
Yes, stop sharing so that
Oh,
we can see you. Thanks, Tony.
okay.
That was terrific. I just want to remind people that if they've got a question to share in the chat, Tony, we've got about 30 people listening in. So that's
Okay,
terrific. We
great.
always worry here, don't we, that we're on the other side of the world, that people have catching up on their kip so that they can not miss out on other parts of the Lean Global Connection. So
Indeed.
Tony, I'm going to start off with a question. It sounded when you first started hard, and I'm going to say physically hard, I think, and kind of intellectually hard, like you couldn't kind of work out what was going on. Did you ever think about giving up, and why didn't you?
Yeah, good question. And the short answer is yes, absolutely. I thought I'd made a career blunder, and I figured that's what do they say? Fail fast. Um, I um, I I did think about quitting, but maybe it was just ego or pride. I don't know. And to be fair, Toyota Australia was relatively agricultural back then. They had taken over an old automotive factory. They had only just bought out the business, what was Australian Motor Industries, and a year later became Toyota Motor Corp Australia. A lot of the systems were in the rudimentary stages of deployment, and there was no structured induction program for somebody like me.
Mm,
It
yeah.
really was a baptism of fire. But for whatever reason, yeah, I did hang in there. And can I just say, I just looked at the participants, Denise. Great to see Olivier Leroux on the call. Good to see you, mate. And Dan Barge and DJ. There's a few of my friends on the call, so
Yeah.
that's great.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Good. I might have some stories to share as well,
indeed,
Tony. So,
indeed.
so
Yeah.
if you think about, you shared your Toyota experience, but then you went on to kind of take what you learned there and take it to other organizations. Kind of what do you think are the three most important things that you kind of took away and then it became part of, what you took to other organizations? I'm sure there's 100 things, but what do you think are the kind of couple of most important ones?
Yeah, look, it's a tough question. I
Mm,
think my answer to that has evolved over time. Initially, I was very much stuck in the mechanistic space based on my supplier development TSSC experience, which is let's just go in and re-engineer the value stream and declare victory. That
mm,
absolutely did 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 not necessarily get us to where we needed or change any behavior. Um,
mm,
and I think, DJ will talk later about when Nike met Toyota. It was a very much a mechanistic approach at first because
mm,
the mechanistic value stream was so broken. But where I'm at now is I've come, from that side of the spectrum where it's the mechanistic re-engineer the value stream, shorten the lead time, expose problems. To me, it's more about, yeah, create an environment that can expose
mm,
and so we can see our problems
mm,
and then
mm,
just work on building the problem solving capability, building the muscle.
mm.
And
Right.
so, and different industries are more evolved. I know Olivia's on the call. The pharmaceutical industry in manufacturing are
Yeah.
quite progressive, at least the
Mhm,
organization that I worked with were in that
mm,
space, and a very heavy emphasis, no surprise, on the daily management system. So the
yeah.
ability
Mm,
to have visibility on what you're doing and the Hoshin process. How is what
yeah.
we are doing connected to where we're going as an
Where we're
organization?
going. Mm.
Yeah.
Tony, we've got a couple of we've got a question in the chat. Oh, there's a comment there from Olivia. Tony, loved your story and reflection. So good on you. Peter Watkins has put a question in the chat. Thanks so much, Peter. His question, Tony, is what advice would you give to a leader starting out applying lean thinking in practice from all of your experience?
Um, I'd probably almost back over what I just talked about, and that is
Yeah.
how do we create an environment where you have visibility to your problems? So first of all,
Mhm,
it's the cliche, what problem are they trying to solve? Get clear on that.
mhm.
And then try and create an environment that's aligned with getting towards solving that problem. I do get a little concerned very quickly about, that's the only question because I still anchor to the highest quality, lowest cost, shortest lead time, flexibility, all that kind of
Yeah.
goals of TPS. Okay, we're out of
Mhm.
time.
We're out, Tony. We're out of
Okay,
time.
over and
Thank
out.
you so much. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye-bye.
See you, Dan.